Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the podcast Strikes Back. My name is George, and you're listening to our episode 20 questions after watching Avengers Endgame with the boys Connor.
Hello.
And Benny.
Hi there.
So guys, thank you for all your comments on our spoiler review of Endgame. We've got a ton of questions, some unresolved things from the film that we want to discuss and try and find some logical answers for you guys. So here we are. 20 questions, 20 answers, 3 legends. Let's get into this. I'm going to start first up with question 1.
Sorry, we should mention that these are questions from those comments and from the fans of the video, yeah.
Yep. So thanks to everyone who has submitted. We've got a first question here from Alan Payne. Bringing the pain. Doctor Strange knew Tony would die? Question mark.
Yes.
So I guess this is referencing back to Infinity War where Doctor Strange gives the Time Stone over to Thanos because he knew that Tony Stark was in a bit of strife there after getting knifed and he had to survive to complete the task.
And die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else there?
No,
It's a pretty straightforward thing. I like thinking about that in terms of just the thought that like he would have had to have done what he knows. Like he knows that Tony has to survive at this point, and then from there on in, it's out of his house. It's out of his hands. I'm assuming that he knew that he would get dusted, and I love that idea that he just has to have faith that that one eventuality has to come true. That to me is kind of a cool little character arc for Strange. Particularly, I like the idea that this person that he's had this back and forth with. This kind of antagonistic relationship with, he now has to put the entire, fate of the entire universe into his hands.
Yep.
That was one of the coolest parts of Infinity War when he, kind of searched the future and saw the one way they could do it, and then realized that this guy who he fucking hates, he has to like sacrifice everything for.
What was it? 14 million realities?
609 or something.
So if he had been killed, it would have been 13,900,999 versions. And the one time where he gives up the time stone, he's okay, mate.
That's exactly how it is, yeah.
He's okay. Another quick thing with this is the ancient one, when Banner's talking to her in New York in 2012, she sort of, when Banner says, oh, Tony, got the, Doctor Strange gave the time stone to Tony Stark, she's kind of like, what?
Thanos.
He's the, sorry, fuck, I'm completely fucking that
I get
up.
them confused all the time.
Purple people. But the sentiment is basically she says that Doctor Strange did that. He's the best in us. And that was a really nice little component to it as well.
Did you guys understand the comment from her when she said, when Banner said maybe he'd have made a mistake, and she says, maybe I did? Is she referring to the fact that she didn't give Banner the stone right away?
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I took.
Yeah, because I think it was the second time I saw it, I kind of thought, is she referencing something else? Like
into the future.
Yeah,
Right.
I wasn't sure whether, or what that was referencing.
Yeah, the first time it made it sound like she made a mistake in picking him to me.
Yeah.
Picking Strange. I was like, oh man, he's really going to fuck up that bad. What have I done? What am I going to do?
Yeah, nothing in the film backed that up though. So
Exactly, yeah. So I don't think
that's what I'm saying. In that moment, was there anything that you could think of that would support that? I don't think there is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just something I got at that moment.
I also, that I think now iconic moment already with Doctor Strange, puts the one finger up, and everyone knows. Everyone knows.
Yeah.
It's even in the audience. It's horrible.
So well put together.
Alrighty, I'll take the next question here, yeah? Nobody ever questioned about Tony Stark's snap. The snap was supposed to wipe out half the creatures of the universe, but his snap only killed Thanos and his army. To me, that's the biggest plot hole. Great movie, though, from Roger2126. This was a real point of interest for me in the movie because we only see the gauntlet and the snap do one thing in Infinity War, which is wipe out half of all life in the universe. And there's no really big explanation or greater context for that. Or, did he just will that? Was that just what it does?
What a terrible mechanic for that to have. Like give the glove to someone and be like, whatever you do, don't snap your fingers because that is bad news.
Wait till you see what happens if you clap.
Yeah.
But then in this movie, we get a couple of snaps, and it makes the stones feel, to me, much more like Dragon Balls. It seems like they can do whatever you want them to.
Bro, there's so much influence on Dragon Ball in this whole movie, I feel.
Yeah. And that I thought was really fun. So I think the takeaway to answer this question is that that's not just what they do. They do essentially whatever
It seems
that would be terrible.
Would not be great. Like he snapped his fingers and then another half goes.
It's like, did it work?
Whoa.
Well, it sort of did.
There's only half of them left in the room.
Shit. I think the idea is just that because they control all matter and everything about the universe is kind of represented in these stones. My understanding is if you use them all together in the form of a snap, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do.
And I think that's why they didn't want to give it to Thor. He volunteered himself at the end there, and they were like, "You are we don't know where your mind is, because whatever you will in your mind and snap, that will come to fruition."
And there is, it is supported in the movie that it takes the will of the person snapping into consideration, or it's not the the wizarding sorting hat. Sorry, it is controlled by the will of the person snapping, because Banner actually goes and says, "I was looking for her, like I was trying to get her back," in reference to Nat. So there is obviously some kind they control what the snap does, to a certain extent. Yeah.
Slight segue. Feels like maybe, when Tony got the stones, he could have just buggered off, supersonic flown out of there, and then Captain Marvel could have just ripped Thanos' head off.
I have thought
Rocket would have died because that big space whale was already flying at him. So that would have been that one casualty.
But wasn't there just too much volume of baddies, for lack of a better term?
We'll never know.
They had Captain Marvel there at that point. I feel like they would have been fine.
What about also willing a new batch of stones to exist? And then
another batch?
And then you've got two... you've got,
what?
Then you got two.
I actually don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. I don't know where I'm going with that.
I think it makes sense to I think you could destroy the stones. I don't know if you could just will a second thing. Because in my understanding, those stones are the physical representation of the key components of the universe.
Tony should have wished for Thanos' army to disappear and to not die.
I've seen some people pose that forward, just being like, why didn't he just snap himself alive? I'm like, I mean, come on. At what point do you just there has to be a limit on this. And I think, to be honest, I think that is I think it's very clever what they did, building it into the mechanics of if you use all the stones to do something of that scale, that saps it out of you. And I love the fact that in the movie, the Hulk doesn't just, his arm doesn't just grow back normally. He's fucked.
Yeah.
So it gives this sense of this is not an unlimited resource that you can do, not because the stones have limitations, but the people snapping do. It's
a heavy burden.
Yeah. I suppose it's my turn, isn't it?
Number 3.
The question is, how come Spider-Man friend is still in school if 5 years has passed? I understand Spider-Man still being in school, but the friend? Shanda, why?
So these are copy pasted straight from the YouTube comments, so they can be a bit strange.
The answer to this is really simple, because presumably the friend was dusted as well. Yep. We can assume that half of that school was dusted. But the more interesting part of this is kind of dealing with the ramifications of the fact that basically half the population have traveled forward in time 5 years. Effectively, according to the people that got dusted, and they are the same age. So you would have,
new iPhone tech.
Yes, that's the main concern that they had. No, I think
sweet new Audis.
Yeah, it's really cool to think about, but it's even cooler if they address it in the upcoming films.
I think they will in Far From Home.
Right?
I think that's going to be a key.
I don't think they will pay a fucking second lip service to it. Because you
don't think there's going to be a fallout?
Because how can they? Is someone going to be like, man, what are the odds that me and every one of my friends disappeared and we all came back and we're all still in the same class? How good is that?
But I mean, we don't bat an eyelid when it's the original 6 Avengers. How convenient that they didn't get dusted. So I'm willing to. It doesn't have to be 50% down the line.
Did you just have a stroke?
Yes.
Yeah, so based on the trailer for Homecoming, it is like the entire cast of kids from the first film, and none of whom have aged 5 years ahead. So
Right.
I'm okay with them taking kind of narrative liberties like that.
it could certainly happen. Like,
and
it's
then
not an impossibility.
still address at least I want some kind of ramifications to come about because of this. Like, I mean, and more than just remember that thing that happened 5 years ago. Like, I want there to be, I want this to feel like a world that has been drastically altered.
And that's what was so interesting about Endgame was that first act of the film where you've got the fallout of the 5 years since the snap. I want to see that, but for these guys who were snapped. I want to see that and I agree with you. There's so much to dig into here. I really hope they do. I hope they don't bitch out in Far From Home.
I just don't think they can ever really get into it, because once you start pulling that thread, where do you stop? Like, there's the people whose spouses disappeared. Did they remarry? Did they marry the brother of the person who disappeared? But people who like reappeared in midair because they were on a plane when they disappeared. Like, was that a part that should have been happening? Like, when Hulk clapped, you should have seen people start falling from the sky. Like,
I'm also thinking about, like, if there was someone that was driving, do they continue on the motion as well? So if the car isn't there anymore, are they just like flown at 80 kilometers forward? Just be like, I'm alive! Fuck!
And what about people who, okay, so that helicopter in the post-credit sequence of Infinity War?
Yeah.
Okay, let's say the pilot got dusted, but there's 3 passengers that didn't. What the fuck happened to those guys? They're dead.
died.
They're just dead.
Yeah.
That's a rough deal, man.
I don't need Far From Home to dive into every little piece of detail, but I want to feel as though that world has been affected. I want them to.
And I think the
take
movie looks so,
considerations.
kind of happy-go-lucky that I just don't see them really addressing it much at all. Like, is half of his class going to be, the cool kids who all got snapped, and the other half is just these like dreary kids who've grown up in this world that's all fucked?
Well, presumably they wouldn't still be in that year.
No, but the kids who are in that year now would have like grown up in this snapped world,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
In college.
Yeah, maybe. I do think that is an interesting area to explore.
Very, very interesting.
In what you're
to
saying
see.
for the trailer, though. We've been fooled by Marvel trailers time and time again. I wouldn't be surprised if half the shit in that Far From Home trailer was absolute bogus.
It was pretty thin. Like, there's not really that much stuff in there from memory.
Although I do like the idea of them taking a field trip so soon after the world's got completely fucked.
Yeah.
How brilliant is that?
Let's go to Paris. All right, question 4. This is from Spike. Fuck. Well done on getting just Spike. Not Spike 7. It's just Spike. So Evil-Nebula returns to Earth using the Pym Particles, and then later on lets Thanos through the quantum realm, which must also have needed Pym Particles. Nebula even makes a point of showing them to Thanos, but they were all given just one lot of Pym Particles. Did I miss something, or how the fuck the ship got to the future?
That is really interesting, actually, because I'm just trying to think of the math. There wouldn't be enough to get them and the ship through.
It really, the contingency here is on how many did Nebula have?
Presumably only one.
She had the one to get back, just like everyone else.
So there's a scene.
Unless they went to Vormir and picked up the spare one sitting on a very dead Natasha. Not sure how they would know about that, but I mean, technically there is another vial of Pym Particle out there.
My thinking was just, and this is not like a solid kind of thing, it's just like, one of those one moment things. Because when she just goes to like their time machine, she's like messing with it.
She puts her fingers into it.
Yeah, like she just hacks it and pulls them through. Like she opens up a thing for them.
That's more my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
She sort of, her fingers extend out, she goes in, and then they bring the Thanos shit
like
through.
They don't bring themselves there forward from their time. She brings them from the time where they have all the time travel shit
I'm
already.
assuming that that's what actually happened.
Yeah.
It would make the most sense. I don't know how the ship would sink. I'm not even sure how, none of that.
Yeah, that's
But that's kind of the mechanics behind it. Basically what she did is she put her fingers in there and it happened.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the biggest of this movie's time travel problems. So
Yep.
Question 4 solved. Fuck. Solving
easy.
problems.
Yeah, left, right, and center. Boom. Next.
We should have been script doctors on this thing.
Now this question is one of my favorites that we've gotten.
Alrighty, number 5 from Emmanuel Lopez. Question, yes. Where are the Infinity Stones at that timeline?
So the main MCU timeline.
Yep.
So let's just quickly recap. They go to the timelines, they bring and collect the Infinity Stones, they bring them back into the main MCU timeline, and then Cap, after all is said and done, Cap goes back and delivers those Infinity Stones to their respective universes. So how come the fabric of reality in the main MCU timeline is not disrupted by there being no Infinity Stones in it?
So that's the big question, I guess, because as we know, Thanos used the stones to destroy the stones. So they are destroyed in that timeline, as far as I can tell, as far as I'm concerned.
Or reduced to atoms.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something there. Maybe even they're existing, but they're atomic sized.
Because the Ancient One says that the powers of these stones is what causes time to march on in the universe. So they seem like a big deal. It seems like there would be problems if they were gone, but everything seems fine. So maybe they still exist in their own way.
My interpretation of that is that like I said before, they are the physical representations of the powers that, kind of move the universe forward and or make up the universe itself. You've just destroyed the physical manifestations of it. You haven't taken away that power in itself. And that I could very easily see in a future MCU storyline or something like that, you could get a scene where, it slowly kind of condenses back into another gem. All he's done is temporarily destroy the physical form, and that they'll reform in maybe some other different type of physical form or back into gems.
Man, I hope we never see one of these again.
Well, I mean, for the purposes of the storyline, sure, I don't need to see them again. But in terms of the mechanic of the storyline, I think that is entirely possible that they're not destroyed. In fact, it's highly likely that they're not destroyed.
I think where I'm sitting at this, and I wasn't actually sure where I was before, but during this conversation, I think that Thanos, I need to know the line itself, but I think he says reduced to atoms.
He did.
So they still exist. They're just atomic sized. So that's fine.
Yeah. I mean,
effectively, there are 6 stones in that main MCU reality.
If you reduce something to atoms, you have destroyed it. Like you haven't shrunken it to the size of an atom. If you destroyed it into atoms, it's essentially not.
But he says reduced to atoms, not
destroyed
to atomic size.
He didn't shrink them down. He didn't shrink them down.
That's what I thought.
No. That's not what reducing something to atoms means.
He's destroyed them.
That's what he did. He goes
all of their
mini size.
It's like mini, but you'll never find them. Then Ant-Man comes up big. He's like, got him.
They're in his cornfields. They're sprinkled out in his cornfield. Legit.
You'll never find them in a cornfield.
Legit. I might have got this completely wrong.
Yes. He destroyed them. He turned them. Yeah. He turned them into particles that they were already consisted of.
That's what reduced to atoms means.
But in that sense,
there's nothing smaller. That is the most divisible thing. It's not the most divisible
Thor
thing.
Thor really jumped the gun, chopping his head off. If that was the case.
Yes.
Well, because in that state, when my first screening...
What did he say just before that? I used the stones to destroy the stones.
Yes.
And
I was just about to say that. So. But when he said that the first time and I saw it, I was like, they're going to use the quantum realm to go down to mini size and grab them. So I've just kind of burned that into my mind. So thank you for clarifying that, boys.
Yeah, no,
Thank you for bringing that up, actually.
You kind of had me, then you lost me, Connor, but I think you're absolutely right. They just represent the powers that exist in the universe. Anyway.
Where did I lose you?
I don't know. I can't remember the stuff he went on afterwards. But
so what's the difference between that and then taking a stone from a reality? It's still, if we're saying that the stone is just a manifestation, but it still exists out there, then why is it a problem for them to take a stone out of a reality?
No. So I think that and again, we're getting into the mechanics that I don't think matter that much. And I should preface this entire thing is nitpicky mechanic stuff. You don't need the answer to these to enjoy this. Stuff. Yeah. So having said that, my understanding is that it's not just representations of, it's the manifestation of, and that if you can control that power via that physical manifestation of it, whatever it may be, time, power, mind, whatever that is. If you take that manifestation out of a universe, my understanding is that it throws that aspect of the universe into chaos, or it it fucks up that universe in that particular way because you are actually removing the manifestation of that power. I think that's getting into it a little bit too much, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, which is why they had to return them to that exact time, and also why destroying the stone itself isn't that problem in the same way because it still exists
in that timeline.
So by reducing them, there's no like offset, there's no like reality stone missing. It's the fabric of reality.
But once again, by reducing, we're not saying become very small.
Miniature. No, so
it's just destroying that physical.
But what I'm saying is the difference between taking it from a reality versus destroying them all is if you take it from the reality, it's offset. There's 5 existing. There's 4 out of 6 existing versus
the power
universe
tethered to that stone has been stolen as well.
But within the reality, if they're all gone, it's still business as usual because it's an even playing field.
I don't think that's what anyone was saying.
No?
But the simplest way I can put this is the stones still exist in the main timeline. Their atoms have been spread across the universe. They're not like all gathered into a little stone anymore.
So they are mini.
No, that's not what
you guys.
No, that's all right. I'm going to put this into a like. That's like if I got like a stone and I atomized it, that would be taking all the individual stone like atoms, zinc and copper or whatever that stone is made out of, and separating them from each other. And like I just spread it all over. That's not like millions of little stones around. That's okay. Separate atoms.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Next question.
Periodic table. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that kind of
Okay.
resolves it for me. Semi. That was one I was tripping out on a lot.
The film certainly doesn't address it.
No,
to any degree.
and we're guessing, so fucked if we don't.
Totally.
Benny?
Mini stones.
That
What?
was me. You're up, I think.
No,
I see how you've organized this.
You're 6.
Yeah, you're number 6.
Okay. I see.
Numbers.
This is all in caps.
Everyone's sabotaging you.
Do I have to shout it because it's all in?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to do that. I thought it took a special kind of person in commas to touch or hold an infinity stone, and in brackets, Barton holding the soul stone. And this is from Tyrotvxxx. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Tyrotvxxx.
Tyro TV. Oh, okay, fair call.
Tyro.
I thought it took a special kind of person. Yeah, look, my way around this in my head is that only certain stones possess the kind of power to physically destroy a person.
So quick rundown. We've seen the Power Stone explode a girl in Guardians of the Galaxy. We've seen
Tesseract.
the Space Stone send Red Skull through the universe. Kind of looked like he was getting killed. And we've seen what's another one? I guess when
The ether.
Ether, I suppose.
yes, which like goes all into Natalie Portman.
But
Fluid.
Jane was able to integrate. That sounds weird. Integrate with it, and not die.
So yeah, I'm exactly the same mind as you. Is certain stones will absolutely fuck you up if you just hold them normally. But the Tesseract we've seen held several times. It was only an issue when it was actually like active.
Yeah, Thanos holds it.
Yeah, and then Soul Stone.
I took it more as like he sacrificed what he needed to, so he is the true owner of it. So he is a special kind of person. Like he did what he needed to do to be able to hold it.
But we also see Banner with the Time Stone. He's a Hulk though, so that's fair, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it makes sense to me that the one that exploded someone was the Power Stone.
Yeah.
That's probably the one you don't want to grab.
Yeah.
It was in a very tough little orb.
I would agree, and that's how I saw it as well. When he first opened his hand, my first thought was exactly the same as whoever commented, Tyro TV XXX. My first thought was, shouldn't that, like, why is Barton holding it? And then the more I thought about it, the more it made sense that why would the Mind Stone explode you, or Soul Stone be untouchable? Why would the Mind Stone be untouchable?
Yeah, he had gloves on too, which is safety first.
There's also that, yeah.
He knows that.
Wool glove.
He's not an idiot.
Alrighty, number 7. Did you want to do this one, bro?
No, you go for it. You go for it.
I'm willing to relinquish number 7 for you.
You do it.
Here we go. You guys don't understand the multiverse theorem.
No.
Quantum
Multi-universe
mechanics.
theorem.
Oh yeah, multi-universe. Sorry. Fuck, clearly don't. This is an actual science thing. You get that? Which implies that time travel is impossible. Traveling in time just creates parallel universes from Kaoru Shimitsu. And I had a bit of back and forth with Kaoru, and we came to a mutual agreement in the comments on the YouTubes.
Did you really?
But yeah, time travel is a huge part of this. I've been racking my brains reading articles, trying to figure out some kind of.
I think I've got it figured out. For
you
the
have?
most part, yeah.
Fuck, man, lay it out for me because I've got some major problems.
Yeah. Not to imply that I know about science things.
Clearly.
So there's a couple of different ways that time travel can work in movies. I think that in this one, they are quite obviously using the mechanism that if you go back into the past, you are opening or gaining access to a parallel reality or parallel universe.
So there's no grandfather paradox. There's no, you can't go back to your grandfather when he was younger, kill him, and then you don't exist. It's not like Looper.
No.
It's not like, well, when they set it up, when they set up the rules, this is what they say.
Exactly. Some of the questions that come about are, about how many parallel universes are created in this, what the rules are for entering and exiting these universes, and those I think is where it gets a little bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
So basically, from my understanding, each team entered a separate parallel universe.
Yes.
So to my count, there are currently 4 parallel universes.
5, because they also go back to the 1970s. So there's the 3 teams, and then they go again. So that creates another split off.
Okay, yeah,
So
let's count that as
total.
So
there's
5. So
total.
Five total universes that are now in parallel.
Yeah.
And that, to be honest, is one of the most exciting things about Phase 4 for me, because I think that this opens up the possibility that you could have 5 completely different universes that you go in and out of. Like, I mean, that's something that I don't think any TV show or well, ironically, Community did it, but no other kind of film franchise has really explored, like the idea that you could have 5.
Arrowverse does a lot of that.
What does?
The Arrowverse, the DC shows.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, fuck me, I guess.
Mhm.
No, so that my understanding is that that's how it's laid out.
We're on the same page there.
The big question is with Steve Rogers coming back to the original timeline. Now, the presumption that I made and that I think is kind of alluded to in the film is that he existed in that main MCU timeline, that he went back in time into that particular timeline and lived his life in that timeline.
And it was baked into the reality.
Yes.
And that old man, Steve Rogers, couldn't exist without Steve Rogers going back in time. He lives his life and then he turns up there on the bench at the end of Endgame. That's what it's implying.
So this is where the grandfather paradox would kind of come in, because
that's contrary to what
exactly. Yeah,
the movie has it both ways. Yeah,
there's 2 ways that I think
tries to
could happen about it, because there's one important thing about the time travel thing that not a lot of people are talking about, which is that it's not strictly speaking just time travel. It's time and space travel, because anytime they go into the past, they're also going into the past at a different location. So this is not just a means to travel time, it is a means to travel time and space, which means that presumably this could be not only that you could, go from parallel reality to parallel reality in the same time, also at different times or places, just kind of enter and exit wherever you want. Bear with me. So I think there's 2 options with what happened with Steve.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
I know. So he went into one of the 5 realities that they created.
He dropped them all. He dropped all the stones off.
Dropped all the stones off. And in the last one, in that particular reality, he went, found Peggy, and lived his life in that reality. And then, after Peggy had died and he had lived his life in that reality where there is still a shield, by the way, like his actual physical shield, in that reality, he then clicks the button to go back to the main reality 5 or so seconds after he left. He appears not in the same space, but appears in a parallel space, or sorry, in 20 meters down the road in front of the lake for narrative reasons, effectively. And what we're seeing is not a Steve Rogers that has lived his life in that timeline, but a Steve Rogers that has lived his life in a separate parallel universe that has then come there after living his full life.
So that's the one that I am most satisfied with in terms of how it fits with the rules they establish. But there are a couple problems with it. The first of which is that so whenever you go back in time, you're always tethered to whatever time you go back in. So for example, they always go from whenever they go from the quantum platform into their reality, they return to that quantum platform in their suits. When Steve Rogers returns or appears at the end, he's not on the quantum platform and he also doesn't have the quantum suit. And that's where the implication where it says he went back into the main MCU timeline and lived that's where it gets a bit fuzzy for me. And that's where it doesn't align with the main rules. So if without those two things, it works perfectly what you said.
So there's a couple ways you can get around that. There is clearly the ability for them to, on the fly, transport in time and space to any point that they want.
But they're always tethered back.
No. Case in point is when they go from New York in 2012 to the 1970s, they were able to pick both a time and a location on the fly. So presumably Steve can, in his alternate reality, when he decides to go back to the main one, pick the time and place that he reappears.
No, I don't think so, because he's still tied to that quantum platform from wherein he made the time jump. Why? You're always stuck to that, because that's why it's 5 seconds later. Like, you can't time travel outside of that quantum. Like, so they did in New York.
I mean, you're saying you can't, but there's no, like this. As much as this commenter has said that it's science, this is not part of the multiverse theory in quantum physics. That I mean,
it's
multiverse theory doesn't actually really have anything to do with time travel, strictly speaking. Like what we're talking about here is actually kind of different, and there's no actual mechanics, real life mechanics when we're talking about time travel. So really, I mean,
more so it's just consistent rules across the movie.
I think that we've seen people return to the platform because that's what's been programmed into their time machine wristwatch thing, but I don't think that there's anything saying that they have to. That's just my understanding.
We only really see it the once, I guess. But
it's not like Thanos came out, like when she brought him through, he had to come through that quantum realm. Like, those are the portals to get in and out.
That's because she's pulling him from that particular machine.
But she couldn't just bring him out onto the cornfield, or
it's a different mechanic.
She's bringing him through that. That's the vehicle through it.
Really stuck into
this. I'm thinking about this so much.
Yeah, me too. And I certainly do not have a satisfactory answer. I see often, of course, that one that Cap grew up in a different reality, then came back to the original one. I don't think that's there at all in the film. So I honestly, I think I'm just done speculating until we hear like Marcus and McFeely talk about this, because I, as we said, I think the movie does it both ways, and I don't think it really fits together in any way that doesn't require you to do a lot of your own work to make it.
Yeah,
there's also another theory out there that so let's say it's impossible for you to go into a time. Look, okay, put it this way: the grandfather paradox cannot happen in the MCU. Let's take that as a given. What that somebody has said is that old Cap at the end is actually a Captain America from an original MCU timeline. So put it this way, there's one MCU timeline listening. He then travels back in time into the main MCU timeline, which is actually a different timeline, lives and turns up at the end. Did I explain that? Okay.
So
it means that all these. So put it this way:
he's a different Cap than the one who left.
He's a different Cap.
They're all taking one step back and to the left.
Yes,
to a different
that's
one.
exactly it.
Yeah, which is fine.
That for me, like, that's very exciting. I don't think that's what it is, but it makes more sense within the rules they've put together.
I definitely don't think that's what they meant for it, but I think one of the biggest consequences here is that they've just set up a universe where they have time travel with no consequences. Like, they have this machine still. They have the Hulk. They can do whatever the fuck they want. They can take people from these other parallel universes, if that's what we want to consider them, and whatever. You
Bring
know?
him in.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think that's really exciting because you were saying that we're getting a series, the What If series. Is that what it's called? That could be the mechanic that they use to do that What If series. Like,
Yeah,
let's
but
go to a parallel universe where so and so happened.
They don't need that. Though. That's not what it's
No, they
about.
don't need it. No, of course not. But I'm saying like that kind of theory, that kind of style of storytelling could be incorporated into the larger MCU. Like,
I don't think it's going to be though. I mean, I don't see Shang-Chi being a result of the parallel universe traveling type deal.
But
I'm just very excited. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities, and it aligns itself with the comic books in a really cool way, which is that you could effectively, within a cohesive and a coherent universe, have some of the wackiest shit that has no consequence on the main timeline or things. It's basically like what we've been talking about with DC. We love that they're doing different things with different properties and not necessarily holding to one timeline, but it's actually in continuity. I think it's brilliant.
You could have Captain Canada.
You could have Captain Canada played by Ryan Reynolds.
I hope they put this stuff to bed after this film, I think, because I'm still not sure how much they nailed it. The one thing I would like to say, I would love to see a movie or a series that's just about Steve returning the stones. Like, just that whole thing.
That
I think
would
it'd
be
be great.
killer.
'Cause
Do we have a question about that? Please tell me we do.
Yes, we do.
Okay, good,
It'll be down the line. All right, well, I guess...
So just quickly, time travel, multiverse, it's inconsistent in Endgame as far as we're concerned. There are a few ways you can look at it this way, you can look at it that way, but there's always something.
It's headcanon.
There's always one thing that doesn't quite fit. Whether it be the grandfather paradox, whether it be the quantum suit, whether it be
the biggest, on the face of it, the biggest inconsistency is Cap showing up like at the end there, old in that particular timeline. That is the only thing that really throws us for a loop.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll get a million more suggestions on how it could have worked. But for the time being, that's the only thing that on a kind of consistent narrative basis doesn't quite make sense.
I'd say Loki's a real wild card too. But
wild.
It's a whole other can of worms.
Are we, again, that should be in there as well.
Yeah, we can talk about it at some point. All right, next up, number 8. You remember how Doc Strange said out of 14,605 realities, one succeeds? Well, what are the chances of a rat activating a quantum portal in a minivan in the afternoon that would be the exact one needed to save the universe from Thanos? That's from Ed Gleipnir. Gleipnir. I will tell you what the chances are. They are 1 in 14,605.
I kind of love this comment. It's basically the best comeback to being like, how unlikely is that? And be like, very unlikely. Yeah. In fact, we have an exact number on how unlikely it is. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
It takes everything that you have in plausible deniability or not plausible deniability, in suspension of belief, whatever you want to call it, and basically says, so much of this is improbable.
I almost, it's funny when we were watching it the second time, Benny, you leaned over to me and you're like, that rat is the MVP of the MCU. But you can almost look at it as this, like, it's almost like the universe fighting back in a way. Like, maybe not, but you can almost look at it as like the Infinity Stones. They're kind of like trying to manifest a solution to make sure that the victims of the decimation returned.
You hippie.
Yeah. Mammals, man.
Well, yeah, you're already kind of starting on this track. But let me say, since we answered that question very thoroughly and very quickly, how do you guys feel about the entire success of this film, or the plot in it, hinging on this rat walking across the console?
In the moment, I was like a little bit,
because it's a big choice.
Yeah, like this is all just by chance.
Yeah.
But I didn't think about it again in the entire film. Like, it wasn't at the end of it, I was like, this was all possible because of a rat. Like, that didn't bother me at all. I was kind of just, it was a plot device that they used, and the story continued on, and I was so invested in it by that point that I didn't really care.
And Georgie, you've come up with your own very interesting justification there.
Bit of a hippie, worldly look.
As for me, I think I don't know. It's such a choice that I just have to respect it, I guess, that they take this biggest movie ever made, and they literally made it all hinge on this rat at the beginning.
But do you think it's them kind of like the Russo brothers having a bit of a chuckle to say like, it's a fucking rat, man. You know, it's like, it's not a cat. It's like the most insignificant mammal you can get next to a hamster. You know, like is there some sort of comedic edge to it in there?
Yeah. At least they didn't have it happen like 2 days after Thanos. Like they gave it some length. Like it was at least 5 years that they were like, you know, let's bring him back.
But yeah, I do think it is kind of them just being like, fuck it, let's put this in there.
Yeah.
See, because there's so much else going on. They're like, I wonder if anyone's going to care.
And they'll be like, the fanboys will be like explosion emoji.
I really hope at some point in some form we revisit this rat.
Yeah.
Maybe in the What If series, because I would love to know more about it.
The What If series is just like the rat didn't, you know, hit that particular button and
What if-
it's just Thanos won. Oh, well.
What if that rat, didn't? That'd be great. Like just like a 2-minute episode.
Yeah.
It's like, what if the rat didn't step on a different button?
Yeah, then it's just like a still of that cage, just like nothing happening. Be like, yep.
Yeah.
It's just Thanos living out his whole life.
Yeah. Oh god, I was going to say something. There's a really brilliant comment that I saw on this on our video of someone saying, I think they said that they don't know of any rat man in Marvel canon, but they do know about a squirrel man or something like
Squirrel
a
girl.
Squirrel girl or something like that.
And a mole man. There was 2.
Yeah, there's mole man, but a squirrel girl, and I absolutely love that there are people kind of searching for meanings in this. Like it could be someone, and I agree with that commenter, whoever they were. I think that would have been really brilliant if they had made that a squirrel and there's some kind of, you know, kind of Easter egg or allusion to.
There's so much to this. Squirrel Girl has defeated Thanos.
Yeah.
In the comics. So that's like that.
Serious?
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. So that would be fucking awesome. She's one of like the most requested characters for the MCU at this point.
There you go. Is it on to me then?
Yes.
All right. What number are we on?
9.
Oh wow. Number 9. How did Captain Marvel know where Tony Stark and Nebula were?
So this was something that we had in our spoiler review. And I thought we'd just reference this.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people comment with the answer to this. But it's something that we said in the spoiler review, isn't it?
No, it was the post-credit scene in Captain Marvel.
Because that's what I'm saying. Like, all right, so there's
we were saying in the spoiler review, like, it'd be great to have a little line or something to contextualize it.
But it's not. It is not in that post.
No, but I think that sets it up.
Yeah, but that again, can we stop acting as though that's the answer? Like all that does is say that Captain Marvel was at Earth when the other Avengers were there.
Yes.
And we presume, not confirm, but we presume from that Rocket somehow has the ability to track the ship.
And I the way I saw it in the cinema was like, I totally forgot about that post-credit scene. So I was sort of taking the end of Captain Marvel and stitching it to Endgame. And I'd just completely forgotten about how that happened. Okay. Remembering that she went back to Earth, met the Avengers. They explain things. She gets the location. She goes. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's what makes sense.
Yep.
I felt like at the time of watching it, like kind of with the narrative flow, I just kind of got a bit jarred. But, you know, when you think about it, that would make the most sense. Like she was on Earth. Rocket knew that the ship was out there somewhere and
had a tracker or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's enough.
Yeah, I still would have liked, I don't know, some kind of connective tissue, like for them to say a line. Just to kind of give me some peace of mind, but it's not that big of a deal.
For Tony to be like, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
Because she never really tells anyone in the movie.
But then again, that's also really economic storytelling in the fact that they're like, we don't really need it.
It's also just good economics because Captain Marvel got a big boost in the box office after this film because so many people probably were just like, who the hell was that?
Yeah. The fuck happened there?
All right, number 10. Wait. So Thor is somewhere in timeline without a hammer? Lol. That's from deshon, ficklin.
I love this. And it's something that has been kind of niggling at the back of my brain as well.
So,
easy answer.
Yeah, I mean, he's holding Mjolnir at the end when he's going through the quantum realm. More so, and well, he's obviously going to return it back to the timeline wherein Thor takes it. But I guess we're going back to time travel, and I apologize here if we're going over this again. But like, do you guys have a problem at all that they can go back in time and it creates a split reality or another reality, let's call it, and then they can return back to that split reality without it splitting off again? So in Dragon Ball Z, for example, every time they travel, it splits.
I've never liked that too much.
You've never liked that?
Not really.
I've loved that. I've always thought that's the way it would work.
This makes it also pointless, though. Trunks come back to save his own timeline, and then he's like, I can't.
I just watched this massive explainer on that on all the Trunks movements. Fuck, man. So cool.
Anyway.
I think that it makes sense if you're going back to the time that you left.
But it should split off.
Why?
Because that's what they established in the film.
Well, they didn't say that you couldn't enter a timeline. As long as there's no paradox created, I don't see any reason that you couldn't return to that timeline.
Yeah, the way I'm explaining it to myself is much simpler and probably makes a lot less sense. Is just that when Steve goes back into these times, like we keep talking about this split reality thing. I'm not even going into that in my own head, honestly. I'm just saying when he goes back and returns everything, it's fine. It just undoes everything they did.
Yeah.
As long the way that I think about it in my mind, as long as it's a fraction of a second after they left, there's no paradox created, so there's no issue. There's no duplication. There's no way that them affecting whatever happens in that timeline will affect any past version of that captain. So there's no paradox created, so there's no issue. They can enter a timeline as long as it's after they have been there.
Because for me, in terms of like the neatness of it, I would, and maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way, maybe I'm looking at too much in that Dragon Ball Z way, but what would happen is Cap he would go back to Asgard in 2013 and it would create two more realities, one without Mjolnir and one with. So it just keeps, every time you go back in time, you split off.
With that theory, he wouldn't be creating, well, it depends on which one he's splitting off from. That's the part that's not going to make sense. Like
every time you travel in time, back to a time, it's creating a split reality.
From the one that you're traveling from?
From
whatever that would have been if you didn't travel to it.
Yes, because so if you're traveling, you're
then,
creating a parallel to it, that should split off.
By your theory, he's just going back to a timeline that already does have Mjolnir, which means he's just doubling up.
No, because
he'd never be able to get back to that timeline. You can't enter that timeline, therefore there's nothing to split off from. It doesn't make sense. You would split off from the one that you're leaving. That's the only one that you'd be able to split off from.
No, because when you go back in time, it'll split off the reality.
This is not going to make any sense to anyone that's listening. It's such a jumble of words at this point.
Yeah, listen, anyway, there's inconsistencies. We've been through it. Fuck it.
Yeah, I don't like going down that road at all because it just devalues everything to me. If we're talking about, because obviously
it doesn't for me. The emotional punch of the film is still there.
Saying for me, I'm saying for me, it devalues it to me. If we're talking about this MCU that is now an MC, multi-U, that's just infinite realities where none of these characters are so infinitesimally relevant. Like I don't want to. I just like.
Keep it neat.
When
keep it tidy.
When Cap went back, he cancelled any potential spin-offs that were going to happen.
Really?
So it's fine. Yeah.
No, because
I'm not saying it makes sense.
Look,
I'm just saying that's just how
I'm not even saying sense. I actually like the narrative structure of that. If there are now 5 parallel universes in which one Loki is alive, how is that not cool? How is that not worth exploring? Like they always have that option there.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Look, let's
I've spent fucking 11 years studying one MCU. I don't need 4 more.
All right, number 11.
Benny.
Just like this time travel stuff too much.
What Happened to Vision? Still a great movie from one William Smith.
Wow, it's such a normal name.
On your Will Smith. What happened to Vision? He's dead. Didn't see Infinity War, huh?
One of my theories.
Bad news for you.
One of my theories coming out of Infinity War that Vision was definitely going to return. That did not come to fruition. I was quite upset about that.
But it makes sense because he didn't die from any kind of dusting. His brain literally got ripped out.
Yeah, I think they're saving him though. I think he'll be back because obviously we have the WandaVision series on the way.
Yep.
And I think some of my theories are that that'll be maybe a split timeline thing. not in some weird parallel universe way. Just like they'll be telling a story from the 2 years when they were on the run in between Civil War and Infinity War, and then maybe I really think Shuri's going to rebuild that boy.
You really hate this whole concept of the the parallel universe thing, don't you?
I'm not too into it. No.
Okay.
Not in the way that it's been done here.
I think Vision's definitely back. And what is he? He's a component of 5 things. He's Jarvis, Ultron, the Mind Stone, Tony and Bruce. So he's missing the Mind Stone, but he still has those 4 other elements to him.
Yeah, they set it up so strongly in Infinity War for him to exist without that stone.
Yeah.
I really don't see why they can't just.
I'm
take
assuming
him to
that Shuri is just going to build him from what they analyzed in the Infinity War.
Yeah,
it's going to be something like that.
Yeah. So answer: he's dead, but he might be back.
I think he's definitely back. Paul Bettany.
Mm.
Yeah.
Number 12. I love this one.
This is a tough one. This is not so much.
We could leave this one for the
this
end.
Is not so much a question.
Let's leave this for the last
This is
one.
a question.
Okay.
But this is number 20. If that's not a tease for everyone to keep listening through, I don't know what is.
Fine. So this is number 13. Actually, number 12 now. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out the grammar on this one. Guys, did you see the one person before Mariah Hill and General Ross, where there was a
Close-up.
There was a close up by the camera, assuming it was the camera, in Tony Stark's funeral. My theory is it was Harley from Iron Man 3. Maybe he's going to be the next Iron Man. Just a theory, and that's from Joshua Balagulan. Well, we can confirm that is Harley because it's the same actor.
Ty Simpkins.
Ty Simpkins. The theory that he is going to be the next Iron Man, I actually quite like. But I think that there are some more deserving candidates that make more sense. I like the narrative structure of that. I like the idea that this kid that's been inspired by Tony gets to wear that mantle. But for me, I think that one of the thing I love about Iron Man is his brain, like the fact that he created these suits, that he can always, kind of do more with them. So I think that looking at, Morgan, I like as a follow-up to Iron Man. If anyone's going to take on the mantle next, having his daughter do it, I think would be pretty cool. Another
Does
one
the
that's
kid have any talents in Iron Man 3? I can't remember.
Who?
Or was he just a regular-ass kid?
No, he gets set up with a big lab at the end of the end of the movie from Tony, so it would make a lot of sense for him to go down that path.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of hype around Shuri becoming the next Ironheart or Iron Man or whatever it was. I think that could be cool.
That's my pick.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of options. I also think that they should just let the mantle just kind of lie for a little bit. I don't think there necessarily needs to be a next Iron Man. In fact, I think that they should probably just leave that as is for the foreseeable future. I don't mind them going down the avenue of Ironheart. Like they've got War Machine, which is effectively Iron Man. But yeah, I think that especially with the last words Tony's speaking being "I am Iron Man," I think it's probably best that they just let that be for the time being.
Yeah, I'm all for them leaving it long enough for Morgan to take over one day if any of this shit's still happening. Because I think that just seems right. And I love that Harley was in this movie, and I love the insinuation that they, I don't know, kept up some kind of correspondence or something. That he still knew him. But
disappointed he never got his hug though.
Yeah, what the
Peter
hell?
Parker got his, but
I like it as just that kind of one-off little thing. I think enough people had no idea who he was in this film that they probably won't revisit him.
He looks so different.
Because I watched it a few days before. I think you recognize him, but yeah, he's grown up a lot.
He's so
Got in that big gangly phase.
tall.
Yeah, he certainly shot up.
yes, tall.
14, 13. One major question
that's
is
gonna throw us off.
how could Captain America age if he had the anti-aging serum put in him? And that's from Sarah's Daily Life. I think he ages like the anti-aging. I mean, does anti-aging mean he does not age, or does it mean it slows down his aging? That's the first question.
I always assumed that it was slowing down his aging.
Yeah, I mean, the dude is like, how old is he when we see him in this movie? He's like 110 or something.
Well, if he went back to the 1940s,
Hmm.
so he would be, 140 million years old
Yeah,
by my
which is
calculations.
pretty good.
So
at any rate, he's clearly doing very well for his age. So yeah, that's definitely how I took it.
if he, let's say Cap is what would he be? About 25, 35 by the time he's in 2023 at the end of Endgame?
Well, I
would
would
you say, let's say he's 35, for example. He goes to 1940, lives from 1940 all the way to 2023, 80 years. He would have to be, let's say, in the ballpark of 110, 120 years old.
Yeah.
He looks like he's about 70 or 80 years old.
Yeah.
That kind of leaves enough wiggle room for the anti-aging serum to work.
Also, maybe I'm just remembering incorrectly, but the super soldier serum, I don't ever remember it. Oh yeah, I'm trying to remember if it expressly has the property of anti-aging.
I mean, I only watched the first Avenger not too long ago, but I can't remember the specifics.
Yeah, I don't recall this actually being a thing.
Oh.
I'm not sure if
you guys
if-
engaged with this question much more than I expected we
Yeah,
were going to. I was
yeah.
like, that's not what the serum is. But I'm like, fuck, maybe I forgot something.
Yeah, well, that's what
But,
I assumed as
fuck,
well.
man.
Yeah,
Either way, clearly the super serum has let him age very gracefully.
yeah. I think either way, it's clearly not just like a stop on
Either way, we're right.
aging.
Put it that way.
Yeah, in every eventuality.
Good point. Is it
14.
All right, I'm up next with number 14. Think about it. The ending actually makes that whole timeline disappear according to the logic of the Ancient One, right? Any Marvel storyline influenced by a stone or Thanos can no longer exist, right? And that's from Fred C. Dobbs 2.
So I think he's referencing back to the Ancient One's diagram that she brings in, wherein there's a timeline and there's if an affinity stone gets removed, there's an alternate version. Now, I think a lot of people got confused with this being the time travel mechanism. The way I took it was each parallel reality, like that strand, that yellow the yellow rope she creates, that's one of those parallel realities existing. And when and that offshoot coming off it is kind of like where it could go.
Yeah, when I rewatched it, I kind of really focused in on that part because that explanation, kind of sets up the mechanics for the rest of the movie. Banner says something actually quite important where he says, I put those stones back in every one of the timelines and that fixes the problem. So that suggests that each one of those yellow strands is an individual timeline that they have affected. I don't think that they're saying that if you put the stone back, the parallel universe ceases to
Converge
exist.
into one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And doesn't she also say it's okay if you make as many timelines as possible?
I don't think she said that.
I don't know the words she said, but she said as long as the stones exist, it's cool. But if she said
I don't think she said that at all.
Okay, because I remember something to the effect of go ahead, make as many timelines as you want, but just don't fuck with the stones.
No.
I don't recall that at all.
Okay, maybe I'm in
Oh,
for false viewing.
Yeah, I was paying attention to that scene pretty intensely. Maybe I just maybe I could have missed it, but I'm pretty sure that there was nothing about make as many as you want.
Because that bit of the film, she only cares about the Infinity Stones coming and going. She doesn't care about anything else to do with the time travel mechanics. So anyway, something to look into. For sure. Yeah. Is this the last time travel one? Because I've got one last thing I want to touch on real quick. Can we really quickly just touch on it?
Go for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in the 1970s timeline, you know how Tony Stark talks to his dad?
Yeah.
What he says to his dad, does that come up in Tony Stark's youth? I.e., is that a similar grandfather paradox problem that we have with Captain America?
Only if you assume that that's where his dad got it from.
Right.
But there's nothing to say that, that's something that his dad picked up later on in life, told him in the main MCU storyline. And in this one, it's just him imparting that wisdom before
Okay.
Tony would have heard it, or sorry, Howard would have heard it from someone else.
But there is potential that Howard Stark did hear it from Tony and then he passed it on to his kid. There's
No.
also that's definitely
Well,
not,
I mean, not if you're thinking multiverse.
yeah, not if you're thinking multiverse.
And I don't think that there's any reason to suggest. I mean, again, the whole mechanic is that you can't change the future.
Other than Cap. And,
Well,
and I think
there's
this,
ways. Again, we've talked about ways
Yeah,
that you can kind of get around.
there
that.
are.
None
There
of
are.
which are present in the film.
None
Yeah,
that are
just
expressed in the
specify.
film, but
And-
it's absent in the same way that no one expressly says how Captain Marvel found them in the ship. I think part of it is just the
It's in
Russo
another
brothers are
movie.
like, no, but it's not. Again, it's
No,
not
I would say
in
it's
another
completely
movie.
different because the way they put it in this movie is Captain America goes back in time, and then you see him as an old man. Like the 2+2 there is that he went back in time and lived to be an old man. I just don't think there's anything more to that in the film.
I agree in that sense. I just think that one requires more thinking and more kind of moving around to get to a place where it makes sense. Whereas that one is the one that you're
There's a
talking
bit
about
of
with,
wiggle
with,
room.
with the Captain Marvel one. That's a little bit more linear. That's a little bit more kind of A to B type
I think
thing.
another direction that we haven't even explored that I think could reconcile some of this in a different way is to go the complete other
writers didn't care.
direction, which is the grandfather paradox sort of thing, and also that when Tony snaps his fingers at the end, is that he doesn't kill Thanos and everyone. He sends them all back to their own time, like sends them back to before they came to this time, which would just put everything back in place to how it was, and then Steve puts all the stones back, which cancels out all those messed up timelines. Like, I'm
What
just saying
about-
that's one possibility of what they could have been trying to do with the
This
film.
is the other thing about
'Cause-
that's not they made significant changes in the past. For example, Loki running away with the Tesseract. That's
Yeah,
something
and
that,
I would say that the idea that they're trying to convey is that Steve going back just undoes all of that. And I'm not saying it makes any sense. I'm not saying any of this makes any sense no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
there's always
that
gonna be
might
an
be
issue.
a way that they're trying
And
to do it.
piggybacking off that, Polygon had a really good write-up that I didn't agree with, but they basically said that timeline that the Ancient One has, that we were talking about, that yellow string that she creates, they basically presented the idea that all the realities are kind of stacked on top of each other, wherein the outcome of each one is the same, but they just have a little bit of a different way of getting to that. And so all these multiverses, it's actually not that. It's kind of, it's hard to sort of explain. It's a good write-up. Go check it out. Polygon Time Travel Endgame Time Travel Explain. But they kind of explain this sort of where they all end up in the same spot.
It's
Do
kind of
they
like
explain
the
it?
river theory of time where, you can have all these little different disturbances, but the water still flows the same way and
Yes.
auto-corrects.
And that to me is a way for everything to work better.
yeah, and I mean it makes sense in the whole kind of Thanos saying I'm inevitable.
Yeah.
But like that could apply to every timeline in that sense.
I think that's the
Yeah.
last timeline one. Damn. Honestly, I can't tell you how much I love thinking about this stuff and all the different types of timelines or time travel that you can get. You get the predestination style, you get the Prisoner of Azkaban style, you get the Back to the Future style, you get the Dragon Ball Z style. Like, I love it so much. So it was cool to have it in
Yeah,
Endgame.
it's funny how often it doesn't work.
Yeah, it never does.
Comes back to the
It
inevitable
works for
reality
two
that
acts.
time travel as we know it isn't real.
Yeah.
Which one were we on? 'Cause we've all buggered it up, haven't we?
15, which is 16
15.
in the document.
The main thing I really need explained is how Cap put back all the stones.
Now,
Balmanian King 242.
now this goes back to what I was talking about with the parallel realities. Every time they go back, they should split off into another reality. But for some reason, he can go and choose, I want to go back to that particular one at that time that we created at.
There's no
X amount of
reason
time
that
later.
can't work as long as you go in front of where you previously got into that universe. There's nothing that says you can't do that.
But it would still,
No, why? There's nothing in the mechanics of
getting
time
into
travel
this
that
again.
would say you can't do that.
because you would have one version where it didn't have the hammer and there would be one that did. Because you're going
because you're
back.
entering the timeline that doesn't have the one, and you're putting it back directly after you took it. So what? Why?
But what
would they
about
need
the
to
timeline
split?
existing where you never go back? So it splits off.
You're thinking about the proper multiverse
Yes.
kind of structure.
Yes.
But that in that
I'm
in
referencing
that
back to
theory-
that thought. I'm basically referencing back to that thought that I had.
In that theory, all those parallel universes exist anyways. Like every decision is a split. So that
in infinite reality.
in
Yes.
infinite reality. So it's kind of a moot point either way.
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. I guess I guess the way I've been framing this whole movie, and it's probably the wrong way to do it, is I've had it in that Dragon Ball Z style timeline, and
I think that is the wrong way to do
I think they've taken a lot of influence from it and they've rejigged it. And I find that Dragon Ball Z style of time travel so unbelievably satisfying that it's hard for me to kind of give it up. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any reason to believe that that's the mechanic that they're using. It wouldn't cause any issues. I'm more interested with the narratives that could result in him going back. I think that there's an entire series that you could base on him going back and in each world interacting with the people there. I'd love to watch Captain America go to, catch up with Star-Lord on what's that planet called? Morag, and have an adventure with Star-Lord in one reality.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Give back the stone or whatever, and then go off to Vormir. Everyone wants to see him like climb that mountain and come into. I would absolutely love if they sat down like old friends, like who had gone through all this shit and arrived at the same place and kind of been like, remember that time we fought? I think that for some reason,
when you were a Nazi?
Yeah. I think in my head, for whatever reason, I think that'd be a really satisfying end to that.
Times.
Especially, not least of which because Captain America is like the least qualified person to be doing this mission.
I know.
Like,
he needs rocket boosters or some shit.
No, actually, I think that'd be great because I could just see him in his like peppy like optimism, walking through all these adventures, being like, "Da da da, I'm gonna put you back there. I'm gonna put you back there." I think that's a little bit more interesting to think about as opposed to the actual mechanics of how he would do it.
Yeah, I mean,
oven mitt with the Power Stone.
What's the chance 2029 Captain America for the Infinity Gem quest?
Realistically,
let's move on swiftly. Question 16: Black Widow dies. What about the Black Widow movie? Heather C, thanks for your question. Prequel.
Yeah, so all indications have been that it's going to be a prequel. I feel like a lot of what we're being told about future movies pre-Endgame is potentially not true. I don't think that's the case for this one, though. Just based on the casting alone, it seems like this is just going to be
happening.
A story about her in her younger kind of spy days.
And I think more of an espionage thriller, more of a grounded, it's not going to be that sort of cosmic MCU that it's evolved into now.
Yeah. It does bring some interesting questions around some of the other planned properties, such as the Loki series. That in and of itself, I think, could be pretty cool.
Yeah, because you were quite hesitant on that one.
Look, I am still hesitant.
You shot it the fuck down every time we brought it up.
Has it been better set up now that you've seen Endgame? Maybe.
If they do it a certain way, I think it could be interesting. If they have it as a parallel universe and it's not just Loki on his adventures, it's Loki interacting with a alternate universe. I think that's a bit more of a plot driving, hook for me. If it's just a prequel, then once again I'm back on the no camp for that. I don't like the idea of a character that has worked really well as a anti-villain in opposition to people like Thor having his own series. I think it's a mistake.
And he's back on board.
Yeah, but if it's a cool little multiverse thing, whatever.
Just referencing back to that, or maybe let's reference it in the next question because that's directly addressing it. Let's move on.
Next question. Alrighty.
17.
Yeah. 17, 18. One of those things.
It's 17, 18 in the document, 17 in the podcast.
I gotcha. Black Widow died. No. How Falcon plans on being Captain America if he doesn't have a single drop of super-serum in his blood. He's just a regular human who's very good with his mechanical wings, and that's it. It's like painting a random guy in green and calling him a new Hulk. And that is from something in the Cyrillic alphabet that I'm not going to go anywhere near.
I think that there's a lot of elements to this that are getting tossed around. At the end of the day, I think they make a very good point. I like the idea of Bucky taking on the mantle because he's actually a super soldier. Good Lord.
It seems like they're very closely paired, though. I don't think we're going to see many instances where Falcon and Bucky are not together. So it doesn't matter to me too much. More so, I'm interested in if he's going to be called Captain Falcon, Captain America, Falcon. Like, what are they going to refer
Falcon
to him as?
America.
Whoa.
American Falcon.
Feige.
Yeah.
And
American Falcon.
More than that,
American Falcon.
that's exactly what I was thinking. For me, I think what they're saying is that the moniker of Captain America and the moniker for any of these heroes really is in the name. It's in the thought behind that. I mean, I was mentioning before that Iron Man was about like kind of the brain and the intellect behind it, but it's also about the character itself. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily the suit that makes Iron Man interesting. It's the person that plays it. It's how they play it and all that kind of stuff. So I think this certainly doesn't doom Captain America. It's not like a failing. I do tend to agree that I like Bucky as the natural next choice, but you know, this doesn't pose as many problems as I think a lot of people think.
Yeah, if you're saying that specifically because of the super soldier serum, sure. I think any number of people could have that same thought, you know, for completely different reasons. And I do think that's valid because I certainly had the same thought thinking like, why is Bucky just standing back there sending Falcon up? Because we just haven't seen their relationship too much on screen between Falcon and Captain America. But I remember watching Detroit last year, the Catherine Bigelow film, I think, which had Sam Wilson in it. What's his name?
Anthony Mackie.
And I remember watching that movie, and he plays such a similar character to Falcon, except he's not a superhero. And I was just watching it like, man, this fucking guy needs to be the lead in one of these things because he's so good in that shit. So I don't think he's really been allowed to shine completely in the MCU just yet, but I have a lot of hope for what he can do. As for him just not being a super soldier, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, so many of these characters are just human dudes. Even if we're looking at the TV stuff, like Daredevil is such a fucking badass, and he's just mostly just a guy.
But blind.
Yeah, but blinder. And you know, there's that one moment in Endgame where he stabs the fucking dude with his.
Oh, that was killer.
They took that up a
That was
notch.
so
like that was
Jesus.
cool. Yeah.
Can we just quickly touch upon about how this movie sets up the Disney Plus shows? Like, it sets up the Loki show, sets up the Falcon show. In a strange way, it kind of sets up the other one.
The WandaVision.
The WandaVision.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
No.
But those two in particular.
Actively doesn't. Yeah.
So the Hawkeye one?
Yeah. Those three. It's like a key component in their strategy that Endgame is. And another whole layer to this is how final Endgame felt. It really did. Like, knocking off Stark, it felt really, really final. Like, it didn't feel like there was no scene at the end where I was like, ooh, he might be there, or ooh, they kind of undone it. They didn't go down that path. So it was interesting how they set up the shows and then also had that finality to it. Give me a moment. You guys keep going.
We will.
Do we have to? What's who's the thing now?
It's on to me, I suppose. You're going to take this mostly, Ben. This is not me saying this. This is the comment. I mean, where the fuck is Adam Warlock? Like, they teased that ages ago, and nothing has happened with him yet. From Stale Bread.
Thank you, Stale Bread. Great name.
I actually like that name.
It's so good.
I really do.
So answer the question, Connor.
He wasn't there.
He wasn't there. Where is he? He's off with Aisha in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies somewhere. If they readdress that character, and I feel like that's kind of a big if, because the franchise as a whole, the Guardians franchise as well, has so much on their plate at this point. But if he turns up again, it will presumably be Guardians 3 or even 4, who knows. But yeah, he obviously has a big part in kind of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline in the comics. But they changed so much of that story and that framework.
This is kind of the big thing. Like, you can't look at the MCU as the comics. They are so wildly different. Like, I mean, they take certain narrative structures and they
bullet
take
points. They've taken bullet points.
Yeah, and they take, like, you know, some visuals and some things from here and all that. Like that's fine. Like for example, I'm pretty sure Falcon does at some point become Captain America.
Yes.
In the comics, like
After Bucky. So.
yeah, like they
Yeah,
do
they just
take
take bits and
from the
pieces.
comics, but to try and compare the comics to the movies is it just
silly.
doesn't work. They're completely different things.
But anyway, that's what I said. That's not really what they're asking here. They're just asking where's Adam Warlock, because last time in continuity we saw him hinted at was set in the year 2014. So it's now 2023 in the MCU, and we still haven't seen him pop up.
When did he get referred to?
In Guardians 2, in the credit scene with Aisha, the Golden Lady, when she's got the little cocoon that we know as Adam Warlock's cocoon.
Right.
So that was 2014.
Yeah.
in the
Well, he's
movie.
on the way.
He needs 10 years to
He's
gestate.
on the way, mate.
One
he'll
more
get
year.
he'll get another a comment like Captain Marvel got, which is like I was busy.
Yeah. I was doing stuff.
Doing some errands.
Huh.
Who's
Georgie,
next?
that's you.
Number 19. Can somebody please explain to me how all the Infinity Stones from Thanos'
Wait.
gauntlet move to the right hand? Did I read the wrong question?
No, you're good. You're
yeah.
good. Sorry. You go.
Bayu.
Damn it, Connor.
Well, it was the fact that the nanotech suit grabbed
That's what I assumed.
stones out.
So he has control over, like, effectively, he has control of the nano suit, the nano bites, whatever it is that made up the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Presumably, if he goes and touches the gauntlet, he can control what that hand does.
Well, it's Tony Stark. Like he can make shields appear. He can make the back of his iron suit do all kinds of crazy crap. He can make it manipulate and move and grab the stones and boom.
Although, if we're going to get really nitpicky about it, and I do love doing that, he could have just sliced he could have like controlled the nanobites to cut off the arm of Thanos, if you really want to get into it. But I mean, that's not quite nearly as satisfying as him stealing the.
I still maintain that to damage Thanos physically, you need something really hardcore like Stormbreaker.
Oh, yeah, actually, that makes sense. Yeah.
Anyway, this question may as well be, how did Tony Stark crack time travel in an evening? Because he's Tony Stark, all right? He is Iron Man. He can fucking do this shit. So, like, I didn't really have a problem with it. Like, it's like, yes, that gauntlet that he's currently wearing is Stark tech, so he's in complete control of the situation.
So, and that's the difference between why he couldn't do it with the Infinity Gauntlet in Infinity War.
Totally, yeah.
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 Solved.
Because that was made by Eitri the Dwarf.
Solved.
Whole different thing. All right, final question. This one is a doozy.
I can't believe that you stole this question from me.
This is from Malcolm Adderley. Were your haircuts inspired by Captain America, Iron Man, and Thanos, or are they this terrible on purpose? To answer both questions, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And yes.
Well, who's Thanos
It's
first?
yes.
Who's Thanos first?
The most shocking thing is if I actually shave my beard, I've just got like a ball sack on my chin.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this is not a style choice. This is so I can go out.
You're wearing a
public
lot of flesh-colored foundation as well, aren't you?
Yes, I think we all know who's Thanos. Thank you very much, George, for asking
So wait,
that question.
who's Captain America and what was the other one?
Well, you'd be Stark,
Yeah, I was just thinking based on color that we're...
but only it's style as well. You've got more of the Stark, sort of the Stark beard, and Ben, you gorgeous Adonis, you
Yeah.
The cap.
real Chris Evans type.
Yeah, but the biggest baffling part is he calling Captain America and Iron Man's haircuts terrible?
Yeah.
And
'cause they
Thanos
are.
Sorry, you just missed one in that
Oh,
comment
sorry.
you said. Wow, thanks.
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah, but yes, they are inspired by those characters.
No, mine was inspired by genetics.
Oh. Well, the funniest part is that Thanos has a full head of hair. We can see that.
we
can
talked about
see
this
that-
on the commentary.
Yeah,
because
if
you
he
can
grew it
see
out.
stubble.
Yeah.
I love the idea of him like shaving in the morning or something, or like
man.
he could have like a full fro or something.
I wish when we caught up with him at the beginning of this movie, he just had hair.
Missed opportunities,
Yeah, it's
really.
a fucking
Russo
big-
brothers, come on, for fuck's sake, get it together.
Thanos afro.
Any final things you guys want to bring up? I know in our non-spoiler review, we didn't bring up Wanda and her cool scene, and a lot of the people in the comments said, "What the fuck? You guys totally missed that."
It's cool. I'm glad
It's
they mentioned
an
that.
amazing part.
It's terrific, yeah.
The CG work on her eyes as well. She really had that X-Men vibe.
And she had him.
Oh,
She had
yeah.
him dead to rights
Was-
before
yeah.
he started blowing up the battlefield.
Absolutely fucking him up.
Mm.
I thought that was really cool. And I'm really annoyed that we didn't even think to mention that. I mean, it is a bit of a testament to the fact that we were talking for an hour and a half and there was so much that we missed in that review. Like, I can't even. There would have been a million things that we could have talked about.
Even though the review was as long as the movie.
Yeah.
All up.
Just about, yeah.
I saw somebody's live stream went for 5 hours, a spoiler discussion.
Damn.
Yeah. But if you think
Great.
about it, there's so much that can be said or talked about even in a quick scene. Like, you could destruct those scenes for hours on end.
I haven't seen Howard the Duck in the final scene. You'd be searching for him for a while.
No,
Yeah, I
I
missed
never
him.
caught him.
There was one last thing. Russo's mentioned something or something happened. Can't remember.
Thanks for the money, suckers.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, that's it. 20 questions answered definitively.
Yep.
With precision and expertise.
That's us.
Also, these are George's details if you'd like to argue about the time travel with him.
If you guys have any issues, you don't think we answered something properly, let us know in the comments on YouTube or hit us up on all the social media channels. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. And that's kind of it for Endgame until we do
Forever.
a commentary.
No, that's
At
it for
some
Endgame
point.
forever. Never talking about it again.
Put it in the can.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. We'll be back next week for the weekly movie show. And I believe Detective Pikachu.
Hey.
Is that next week? 13th.
9th that comes out.
4th, 5th, 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll be there. It'll be great. Thanks, Connor.
See ya.
Thanks, Bernie.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, George. Thanks, this little guy.
Backwards, guys.